Just because I poke fun at the stories I read and or fan art featured in my videos doesn't mean that anyone should harass the creators of anything featured in this show. Cyberbullying is a serious issue that damages people emotionally and psychologically, sometimes to the point of self-harm and or suicide. Please keep any and all criticism constructive and reasonable for all parties involved. Thank you. Hey guys, what is up? This is GothCat bringing you episode 7 of Not Sure If Troll, the show where I read crappy pastas which could be troll pastas for all we know. In today's episode, I'll be reading a story called Pinkamena, a fan fiction based on the Cupcakes version of Pinkie Pie, which completely disregards MLP canon a lot more than other fan fictions do. Except this one is a supposed origin story. This should be fun, and I hope it's fun for you too. Now, without further ado, enjoy the show, guys. Pinkamena. Pinkie is profoundly known as the happiest, most fun-filled, excited, and friendly pony in Equestria. But her motto, "Life is a party," shall expose her true character in the end. As a filly, her parents were poor rock farmers. She saw that her fate in the stage of her life was absolutely harsh and unworthy. She rock-framed for several years of her life extremely depressed. Then one night, as she wished upon a star as it streaked by, and suddenly she heard a voice calling her. She looked around and didn't see who or what it was. Princess Luna appeared from the moon, gazed down at the little pink filly. Pinkie looked up and said, "Who are you?" Luna responded in her usual candlelight tone. "I am Sister of Celestia, banished here by my rejection to friendship. I want you, Pinkie Pie, to accept some friends upon my 1000th year return." "Pinkie, do you feel lonely? Are you out of place? Face it, you will never have friends. So make friends with whomever you please, then turn your back on them, and may their bloodshed be scattered all over Equestria. Do as I say, and we will eventually rule together." Pinkie was hypnotized by the evil curse that was placed on her. Luna cackled wickedly and then faded back into the moon, where she disappeared. Pinkie jiggled her little head and walked back inside. At dawn, Pinkie woke, her mind still saddened by the thoughts of rock farming and peculiar curiosity of what happened to her the night before. With her head dropped toward the ground, she began pushing the tiny rocks into the pile at the center of the farm. She moped on and on. Suddenly, as the sun peaked in the sky, a massive double rainbow streaked across from one mountain to another. Pinkie felt the sense that last night must have happened and that she must do as Luna had said. She knew it had to be done, but she didn't know how. The little pink filly pondered this for several minutes, and then it struck her just as the fascinating rainbow did. She will have to hide it until the time has come. Later that day, she arranged a party in her parents' house, and the motto, "Life is a party," hanged on around the living room on a colorful banner pinned to the opposite ends of the wall. A wooden table lies in the center, and 4 plates were placed amid the cake, titled with Pinkie's motto. Thrilled, she bounced outside and called her parents. 15 years later. While the ponies were asleep, Pinky was not. She scurried around her house, gathering whatever torture weapons she could find. She wickedly murmured to herself, "They were never my friends. They enjoyed the time of fun while it lasted, but now they will all pay." She clutched a hacksaw, a double-headed axe, 4 piercing darts, a 2-foot-long, narrow PVC tube with one side covered by a thin layer of cement with a 1-inch hole in the middle to prevent the dart from falling back and going down her throat when she blows into it. Bow and arrows, leather straps, 5 gray cloths, a 5-ounce bottle of chlorophyll, powdered arsenic in a can, a bag of ricin, a gas mask, and a various assortment of knives that she found around her house. These items were thrown into a rusty wheelbarrow. Pinky almost forgot to go down the cellar. The cellar door, which was located out back from the house, had grass covered all over it to hide it from any pony's curiosity. Therefore, it was also tightly locked. As soon as she lit the room by grabbing the chain that turned on the single light bulb that hung from the ceiling, a pony could see that there was a long counter with dozens of files on it, containing personal information of every pony that she met. On the wall hanged all of the pictures of everyone in Equestria by alphabetical order. There were several victims whose profiles shall remain classified. Pinkie Pie looked around, shuffling for the files that were labeled Twilight, Spike, Rainbow Dash, Applejack, Rarity, Fluttershy, and Celestia. Once she found them, she carefully examined what she wrote about them. After that, she placed the files down, went over to the gray wall, and marked the faces that correspond to the names of each of the files she read over. She hurried back into the house and pushed the wheelbarrow out the front door. Pinkie knew that Twilight must be her first victim before the others, since Twilight represented friendship. Without her, not only will the elements of harmony shatter forever, but all friendships in Equestria will do as well. Pinkie arrived at Twilight's tree house and hid behind a bush with her murder weapons to the side. The air chilled as Pinkie watched what Twilight was doing. Twilight wasn't asleep, but instead she used her magic to write some facts down with her quill pen as she studied the night sky. Pinkie shuffled through the pile. She grabbed a bow and set the arrow in place. From the distance and position of where she was, she had a clear shot through the window that Twilight left open. She pulled the arrow back as far as it would go, then released it. It sliced the air as it flew through the window. The arrow penetrated Twilight's head with the arrow's point sticking out the other end. At the moment, Twilight collapsed onto her desk, and the ink bottle fell with all the ink dripping out. The parchment paper that she wrote on was completely soaked in blood. Spike woke up and hurried downstairs, stopping to a grinding halt as he reached the bottom step. As much as he wanted to mourn over the death of his caretaker, he held back his tears for half an hour, then grabbed the soaked parchment paper, not caring that it had blood on it, and inkwell, and began to write to Celestia about this tragic incident. Pinkie knew that her plan would be foiled, so she held another arrow, set it in place, and stretched it until it maxed out its tension. Then she let go. The arrow pierced Spike's eyes, traveling through his head. His eyes closed as the ink and quill and paper fell towards the ground. Pinkie cried out in evil laughter. "Now all friendships will be gone. Forever." Pinkie rolled the wheelbarrow into Twilight's house and locked the door to conceal the evidence. She fetched for the spiked leather straps, cloths, bottle of chlorophyll, hacksaw, and a knife. She had a 45-degree edge to its blade. In addition to this, she managed to find some balloons that Twilight had kept in case of an event of a party. Pinkie carried it all outside, where she tied it up to the largest cloth that she found. It was more the size of a blanket than a cloth. She attached the cloth or blanket to 5 balloons, uplifting the items to Cloudsdale, where Rainbow Dash resides. With 8 balloons tied to her legs, 2 on each leg, she floated herself up to Cloudsdale. The balloons were still tied to her legs when she arrived. Because she was an earth pony, she would have fallen straight through the clouds. The cloth of lethal weapons popped up into the clouds next to her. She picked up the cloth and headed for Dash's house. Dash peacefully slept in her bed above the fluffy clouded floor. Pinkie pinks over Dash's shoulder while cautiously strapping the straps from the wings to the arms and around the upper waist. Once done, she threaded the straps to the buckle and tightly pulled. To her surprise, Dash heavily slept as she did this. When she wet the cloth with chlorophyll from the bottle and tried to force it on Dash's lips, Dash opened her eyes and started to panic by coughing it up. Pinkie immediately dipped more of it from the bottle and forced it onto Dash's lips again. Pinkie chimed. There, there. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. Rainbow Dash closed her eyes, feeling her pulse slowing down. Pinkie proceeded by holding a knife and jabbing it in just below the jawbone. She then slit the throat across, leaving a long trail of the oozy red liquid to stain the skin. The neck was too thick for the knife she had, so she clenched the hacksaw in her hoof and swung Dash's head right out from her body, and the head fell in the clouds, changing the color of them from puffy white to dark, bloody red. Pinkie gathered her murderous objects and chuckled. Dash, if you really represented loyalty, then you would have noticed that I wasn't loyal to you at all. Pinkie, with the oversized cloth on her hoofs, and jumped off the clouds, fell to the ground and propped up unscathed. Pinkie threw the cloth back into the wheelbarrow and grabbed the gas mask and the 30 micrograms of ricin that was in the zipped bag. She covered her face with the mask, locked the door of Twilight's house, and hurried on her way to Sweet Apple Acres. Like Twilight, Applejack stayed up every night, not to study, but have cider and pie to help her fall asleep. Pinkie silently hid behind the bar. Pinkie listened for a sound. She moved closer to the kitchen of barn and stooped down from plain sight. Applejack had begun preparing her midnight treat. Pinkie wasted no time swooping in, opening the bag and dumping the lethal toxin into the drink that sat in the round wooden table. Applejack suddenly looked back, but nothing appeared in front of her eyes. She thought, it must be the wind. After she prepared it, she brought it over to the table and sat down. She started to sip it, thinking that she added too much sugar to the drink. Moments later, she felt very dizzy and nauseous. Her body began to shiver and her beat quickened as she rushed for the restroom. Finally, about 10 minutes or so, she passed out and her eyelids faintly closed as her head fell into the bowl. Pinkie scolded. Your honesty is not enough when it comes to trusting your instincts. Pinkie ripped off the mask as she said this and ran to Twilight's house to prepare for the next murder. Pinkie had little time to commit the next 2 murders before she had to meet Luna at the castle. She stashed up the pipe, the darts that she pre-caked with arsenic, and the double-headed axe, and left. Even though Rarity was supposed to be a bed like her younger sister Sweetie Belle, which slept in the room across from her, she spends hours every night fixing her closet, which was already straighter than a single leg can be. Sweetie Belle tucked under her blanket, slept soundly while her sister tried not to make any noise. Pinky swooped in the house and scurried to the closet where she hid. Downstairs, Rarity was setting up for the next day. As Pinky stopped by, like Applejack, Rarity thought that it was just the wind, not aware that Pinky planned to kill her. She finished assorting her shop minutes later and headed back upstairs. Rarity completed organizing her closet and was deciding what to wear in the next occasion. Pinky buried herself at that moment under a pile of pink clothing that lay on the floor of the closet and waited for Rarity to decide. Pinky carefully shoved the dart into the tube and waited for Rarity to pick up her clothes and decide. The other darts and the murderous axe were outside of the house under a bush. This meant Pinky had only one precise blow in order to bring her down. Rarity spent at least 50 minutes deciding as Pinky sealed her lips tightly around the tube and was ready to blow. She aimed at Rarity, who stood there playing a game of eeny, meeny, miny, moe with her clothing. Pinky took a deep breath in and blew the dart out as hard as she could. At that second, Rarity felt a painful poke in her neck. Before she could cry for help or pull the dart out, the pigment of her face turned from white to bright red as she found herself choking. She couldn't breathe and her pulse raced faster and faster. She lay on the floor for several minutes and then passed out. Pinky stepped out of the closet and dashed down the stairs, not leaving a trace of evidence behind her. She didn't say anything, as she did this because Sweetie Belle woke up at the second and found her sister dead. She screamed for her life. Pinky stashed the double-headed axe and rushed over to Fluttershy's cottage immediately. Pinky quietly approached the cottage and opened up the chicken coop that was outside the house. The chickens looked up at her, but instead of squawking and alerting Fluttershy, they scampered into the coop in fear of what Pinky was holding. Pinky vigorously shook the coop until all the chickens fell out. She swung the axe behind her head and brought it down, smashing the coop into 1,000 pieces. The chickens were huddled up together in fright of Pinky. There came a loud squawk from the direction of the Everfree Forest. A cockatrice that Fluttershy had friended bolted towards Pinky. She turned around immediately, staring at the cockatrice. The cockatrice tried not to look at her. Her fear of Pinky was so menacing with that axe that the cockatrice couldn't pull itself together enough to petrify the pony into stone. She huddled up in the corner of the fence with the other chickens. With a mighty swing, Pinky chopped all of the chickens. Their blood spewed everywhere, including on her. Pinky creaked open the door, staring at Fluttershy's pets that cowered in fear of her. They too huddled together without a noise or a sound. Pinky approached them, her eyes bulging out with red veins popping as she approached them. She raised the axe and slashed all of them, leaving blood room behind as she went upstairs. Fluttershy swept as heavily as Rainbow Dash did earlier that night before her life ended. She did not hear a noise, a sound, or word that night as she was tucked under her blanket, holding her pet bunny Angel in her arms. The door creaked silently as Pinky entered the room, careful not to disturb Angel or Fluttershy as they slept. Pinky dragged the axe into the side of Fluttershy's bed. She whispered, "You were kind enough to let me in. Now say goodbye." With that, she took the axe, raised it, and sliced right through the middle of Fluttershy's head, killing her instantly. Blood cascaded everywhere. Angel woke up and jumped for the door, but before he could reach it to escape, Pinky shut the door and creating a prison without bars or windows. She continued by grabbing the axe that gashed Fluttershy's skull and dragged it straight from her head down to the middle of the pancreas, slicing her vertically in half. All her organs can be seen, and the room was splattered in blood. Angel could not bear to see the horrid sight in front of him. Pinky lifted the axe from the pancreas and killed poor Angel, who stood by the wooden door. Pinky insidiously left to the almost completed plan. All she needed to do now was end Celestia. She places the murder weapon on the bed, tiptoes downstairs, slammed the cottage door behind her and locked it, galloping her way towards the final place, Canterlot Castle. Luna, in a happy, evil sense, saw the pink pony galloping towards her. Luna thought, it'll all go according to plan. Luna, Nightmare Moon, was surprised that Pinky has made it without being caught or killed. As Pinky arrived, Nightmare Moon spoke to her. Are they dead, those who represented the elements of harmony? Pinky replied in a dark tone. All of their blood is scattered, and shall every pony discover that this is the end of Equestria's golden age. Nightmare Moon nodded with that evil lust in her eyes. She pushed in front of Pinky a half-ton bounder. Then she commanded in her Canterlot tone, I have placed all the guards to rest. They will not wake up, or even know anything until this is over. The sun will not rise tomorrow or ever again, and may the darkness shadow this land forever in vain. She paused for some time, then she continued. You, Pinky, are to end it for the sun, for me over Celestia. I will restrict my sister the best that I could with my magic. You are to smash this rock into her skull, ending her reign, and we shall have control over all of Equestria, like I did before the banishment to the moon. Do as I have cursed you. With that, Pinky agreed, and they started up the stairs of the castle carrying the rock. All the guards were asleep where they stood, not knowing what was about to happen, and when morning comes, they shall wake under the order of Nightmare Moon. Celestia slept tightly in her bed. Nightmare Moon and Pinky marched on. Celestia's room was located at the top left of the castle. They reached the top and stepped into the room. The doors were wide open and no guards were present in the room. Pinky walked into Celestia's bedside with the boulder next to her. Nightmare Moon was behind her preparing magic, ready to strike if needed. Nightmare Moon stared at Pinky. She knew what she had to do. Pinky held the rock up high and slammed it right into Celestia's skull, ending her at that very second. Nightmare Moon had a monstrous smile and proclaimed, I have cursed you well. Every pony will soon know, for the fall of Equestria has begun. Well, that was ridiculous. First of all, the title is repeated in the body paragraphs after the actual title. Well, that's a silly start. It didn't really break canon as much as I thought it did, but it still fucks canon in the ass. Why is that? It managed to somehow keep Pinkie Pie's background, at least her Philly past, mostly accurate up until the initial event. I might have that turn a bit off, but I think it's opening action when Luna appeared. Now, I'm still a pretty new Pegasister myself, but there are some things about the story that even I noticed that were off. First of all, it would be one thing if Luna appeared to her, if she was, and then beckoned her back. If she wasn't reformed at on episode 2 of season 1, you know, because I do recall that in season 1 that Luna was reformed after Nightmare Moon was defeated, so it doesn't really make any sense. Not to mention, there's no little detail that said that Luna was going to be corrupted again. So it doesn't really make sense for her to appear to Pinky, hypnotize her, and then come back for her 15 years later. I mean, what? That concept is just dumb on its own, and as far as I recall, I believe Pinkie Pie got her cutie mark after seeing her Sonic Rainbow. Aren't cutie marks supposed to be representative of who you are, or your special talents or something, or any other some sort of unique feature? And if this curse had been her turning moment, wouldn't she have gotten a different cutie mark? Oh my god, there's just so much wrong. And as I've said in another video, pony pastas are extremely difficult to pull off, you know. Then there's this whole thing about Pinkie Pie faking her happiness. All of a sudden, yeah, I get that it's supposed to be some sort of cover for her wicked curse or wicked assignment, but you'd think a gradual change instead of a sudden change like in the show would have been a better cover for her. God. Not to mention, if she was faking it the whole time, she wouldn't represent the element of laughter, which I recall Pinkie Pie is the element of laughter in the elements of harmony. And there's this weird thing where Luna declares that she has, quote, cursed you well. Of all the things that she could have referred to as, do as I have cursed you, or I have cursed you well, doesn't really seem to be a good way. It seems to be one of the worst ways to convey that. I mean, you could have at least had her say, do as I bid you. God. Oh, God. Yeah, before I ramble on and on about how ridiculous this is, let me just move on to the spelling and grammar. It is mostly coherent as a story, except for maybe a couple of paragraphs or so, like paragraph 4 when it says, Pinky, do you feel lonely? Are you out of place? Blah blah blah. You can't. It's extremely hard to tell that Luna / Nightmare Moon is the one saying this, rather than. It's kind of like you can mistake it for the script format used in My Name is MCCP, which I read in my last video. Oh god. Other than breaking canon and fucking it in the ass and the vagina and in the mouth and jizzing all over that canon too much, this story seems to otherwise have somewhat of a poor foundation, even if you didn't pay attention to canon. I think a better premise for a pony pasta would be in something sweet to bite. I haven't really finished that particular pony pasta, but it does seem to have a much better foundation as to have this mysterious candy mare hunt down and kill a bunch of characters. Although that breaks canon a little bit, it also pays attention to its roots, which is the canon tradition of offering candy to Nightmare Moon. And if you want a successful pony pasta, you have to make the foundation as solid as possible with your best spelling, grammar, and coherence in general. And so obviously, this doesn't really fare very well as a serious creepypasta. As for its potential as a troll pasta, it kind of has to be a little more ridiculous to do well as a troll pasta, because it seems more like a genuine but silly effort at a pony pasta than a troll pasta. Now, regardless, honestly, it's a bit confusing trying to figure out what this author's intention was, and like I said, it looks more like a genuine but failed effort at a creepypasta than a troll pasta, which means if they intended this to be a troll pasta, they pretty much fell flat as well. So that's all I gotta say about this bullshit. In the next episode of Not Sure of Troll, I'll be reading a story called Unknown Paranormal Activity, which I swear to God is definitely a troll pasta. Don't believe me? Watch the video when I air it 3 weeks from now. As for my next upload, get ready for an all-new episode of Totally Overrated, where I read Laughing Jack. Yep. This is GothCat signing out. Thank you and goodbye.